Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019, and we are continuing to move forward through yet another offseason together. As always, Jaguars On SI delivers you the best 100% free 24/7 boots on the ground coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you can find it each day when you follow us on social media such as Facebook and Twitter at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. Today we are talking about day 14 of training camp. It occurred on Tuesday. The Jaguars have an off day on Wednesday. Thursday, they are having what Liam Cohen described earlier in the week as basically a quasi-scrimmage. And then, of course, they are getting ready for the New Orleans Saints on Friday. It will be the Jaguars' second preseason game. We were able to get a look at how the team looked on both sides of the ball during their opening preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now the Jaguars are turning the page and looking ahead to the Saints. To me, this entire week has been a lot about execution, getting the little things right. We talked yesterday about how they spent about 40 plays in a period simply lining up, snapping the ball, and then blowing the whistle dead. They wanted to make sure they were getting their alignment right, their assignments right. And I think when you listen to Liam Cohen speak this week, and when you listen to Anthony Campanile's press conference on Tuesday, following practice, you can see that that is their big takeaway from the first week of the preseason. That they need to work on these little things. That it is the time now to kind of iron out these kinks and get ready for week one. As I said, maybe people's expectations for the defense got too high too quickly. I think, considering where the defense was at last year, maybe it makes sense to, view them as a potential top 24, top 25 unit, as opposed to, I think some people, had goals of maybe a top 15 defense, something along those lines. To me, what I've seen from the Jaguars defense this week, and again, Monday was really a toned down practice, kind of a walkthrough day. So mostly what I saw on Tuesday is that, at least in my perspective, there's still a bit of the lagging issues in terms of communication, at least in the back end. The Jaguars were able to hit several big passes in team drills on Tuesday. Guys were getting open behind the defense. Guys were running kind of free. To me, I'd say it's the most explosive the passing game has looked in camp. The most, highest rate of guys running open downfield that I've seen so far in camp. So it very much so, I think, is a work in progress for the Jaguars. Now, it's clear that in the secondary, they're working through some things. Travis Hunter spent the entire day on defense. You have Tyson Campbell injured. You have Buster Brown injured. So they're moving some guys in different places. You've seen Darnell Savage take some snaps at the nickel cornerback position, like he did on Tuesday. I think that's a natural role for him, perhaps even more natural than safety to an extent. You're seeing Jarian Jones, of course, get a lot of run. Christian Braswell. I mentioned Travis Hunter, of course. To me, to get the secondary right, they need to simply add the best playmakers they can. And that is why I think one thing they have to do is just get Darnell Savage specifically on the field more. I think Savage, again, as I've said, is one of their best playmaking players on defense. One of their most athletic, one of their most explosive, especially amongst, if you're just talking to defensive backs. So I think Savage has to be on the field. To see them using him in different roles, I think, is a positive sign. Overall, though, it's a defense that could take maybe longer than many people anticipated on just kind of getting into the swing of things, on really, playing sound football that can prevent some of the issues you saw on Saturday. Campanile didn't downplay the issues. He didn't run away from it. When speaking after practice, He noted, how, there were some positives, stopping the run. It seems like they're happy with their defensive tackle play, but it definitely does seem like, a defense that is still kind of learning itself and is still trying to really find itself. Elsewhere, on day 14, Parker Washington, what a day. Parker Washington, it's getting to a point where we're mentioning him pretty much every time we recap a day of practice. And it's not intentional, it's just simply what we're seeing. Parker Washington had a stellar day. I think arguably his best day of camp, and he's had a really good camp. He, to me, and when I say this, I'm not saying he's their best receiver, because there is a big difference between practice and game day. But to me, the most consistent and steady receiver during training camp, I think, has been Parker Washington. Brian Thomas has had, sometimes seem like he's been frustrated with his training camp performance. De'Ami Brown, he's a guy who some days he'll have a big day, and then others he'll go a couple days where you're, kind of wondering, where he went. I think Parker Washington is the guy who it seems like every practice is the only one who has consistently made a play every time. He made some incredible grabs on Tuesday. One deep downfield, a rocket from Trevor Lawrence that he leapt for and was able to get. He was really impressive in one-on-ones. I thought, for Parker Washington, again, it was his best day of training camp. And I think if you're the Jaguars and you're having these injuries at cornerback, maybe Parker Washington can make you feel a bit better about maybe balancing out that split for Travis Hunter between corner and wide receiver. But I thought Parker Washington was once again stupendous on Tuesday. He's a guy who, last offseason he looked good, and last training camp he looked good. I don't think he looked this good. He is making play after play. It looks like Trevor Lawrence has a lot of faith in him. I think if there's one guy who you can say is kind of ascending, I would say it's Parker Washington. Now, he's still the clear fourth receiver on the team. He's still behind Travis Hunter. He's still behind De'Ami Brown and obviously Brian Thomas Jr. But considering how much Travis is going to play defense, I do think you'll see a decent dose of Parker Washington in three receiver sets. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the course of the season, how Parker Washington translates what he's done in practice and in training camp over to the field. But overall, I'd say, Parker Washington has had a really solid training camp. The last thing we're going to talk about is the running back position. It was an active day for the running back position. There were definitely some tinfoil hats being worn on social media. And it just, to me, it is how it is. For example, Travis Etienne was scheduled to speak after practice. He gets cramps near the end of practice. We see him toward the end of practice, talking to trainers. This isn't some, coordinated effort to keep Travis Etienne from talking to the media. Travis Hunter deals with cramps, doesn't do his post-practice press conference. You then, have people wonder, Travis Etienne not talking. Is he getting traded? Did they just trade him? No. And that's when I think it's important to trust your guys who are on the ground. I even told one guy was he didn't believe he had cramps. And I told him, I was like, no, that's 100% what happened. He said 100% not buying it. So some people you can't help, some people you can't save, but definitely was the case. Elsewhere, our running back, I thought Bayshao Tuden had a really strong day. You're seeing him start to get more and more first-team reps. You're seeing him start to get leaned on more and more. I think that Bayshao, again, is somebody who can kind of give you the best of both worlds of Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. He's not quite the exact same as either one of those running backs, but like Travis Etienne, he can be an electric guy out of the backfield as a pass catcher. Like Tank Bigsby, he can run downhill, break tackles, get through the second level with a lot of speed. I think if Tuden continues the trajectory that he's on, I'm not going to call him the number one running back or anything because I think this entire Jaguars backfield is kind of hard to decipher. But I do think you could see him, if he continues to progress, have an increased role in the Jaguars offense. He had one run on Tuesday showing off his speed where he just burst through the second level, flew past the secondary on the third level for a touchdown that showed why he's going to be a tough guy to keep off the field. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. We'll be back next time.